Welcome to the J Street Regulars Radio Hour. Thanks for tuning in. So thankful to have listeners out there who choose to spend some time with us. Super excited about tonight's show. We have A Reason to Listen. They are a Humboldt County poetry collective that has been hosting an open mic in Eureka for 14 years. It's going to be an incredible evening. So without further ado.
Thank you, James. James just moved on over to the piano next to me here, and he's going to accompany me in my first piece. My name is Therese Fitzmaurice, and this piece was written on January 8th of this year. It's called Invocation. I want to share my words with you in a way that sparkles and cracks inside your chest. I want to ignite the flame that melts away the icy frost of isolation. I want to see you rise like the river in the sky, waves dancing in the wind. I want to move across the keys you pluck on the back porch of my imagination. I want to watch you watching me. Eyes touch across infinite distance. This slow return has begun. Come carefully from your shelter. Peel away the chrysalis. Steep in sun rays. Bathe in moonlight. Find your instrument, your brush, your pen, your body. Hold it close. And then when you're ready, crack open and sing. Thank you so much, James, for beginning the show with me. It's a wonderful experience to have a musician as a poet. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to get to perform with musicians and to be in this space in the sanctuary. I haven't been here since COVID started. And the first album that I created with musicians, I released here a couple years ago. So it's such an honor to be back in this space and to remember that this too will happen again, that we will be together in person, hopefully in a few months from now, but it'll be safe again to be indoors and co-create together. So I have two other poets that are with us here tonight, Annie Fricke and Jeremiah Anderson, who are also organizers of A Reason to Listen, will be performing. We each have about a 20-minute poetry set for you. And the work that I have chosen tonight all comes from things that I've written over the last year. I'm currently working on creating a new book, and it's a compilation of poems and personal essays, and I may actually leave a few journal rights in there. It's first and foremost for my children and my grandchildren. I want them to have a personal view of what it was like for a 43-year-old mother of two children in Humboldt County to live through the pandemic. So I'm gonna kind of jump around the poems that I've chosen, begin in May of last year and then span through February. So in the beginning of May, actually on April 30th, I wrote this personal essay that was focused on cultivating a relationship with pleasure. I had read a book by Adrienne Marie Brown, where she talks about pleasure activism and the power of finding pleasure as a political action, as well as a way to ground ourselves as we move through really challenging times. She's an organizer in the Black Lives Matter movement. She's incredibly grounded in the difficult challenges that we face, and that idea of really cultivating a practice of pleasure in the beginning of the pandemic when things were so uncertain and there was so much, so many different waves of grief coming really helped me. So these two pieces, I'm going to read two short pieces that are really just about celebrating and being present with nature. And that really was a gift to me. I mentioned a couple children in the beginning of this. I watched my friend Anne, she's a nurse. I watched her children during the beginning of the pandemic so she could continue to work. And then I mentioned my daughter Cadence as well, who was 9 at the time. She just turned 10. So May 3rd, 2020. The morning dew gathers like iridescent globes on the vibrant yellow daisy petals. Cadence and Liam shoot arrows with her bow set across the backyard. Logan is stacking cups on his fists, creating 5-year-old magic tricks. In the kitchen, the California honey drops broke down the boundaries of space and time, moved my bones into a collective ritual of remaking the world. Step, step, shimmy, step, step, shine. Awaken to this morning daylight. Divine pleasure unfolding like clockwork, reliable, long before the invention of time. Thank you. I'm imagining in my head like a real live audience that's like, in our poetry world, we've been hosting, these monthly events. We've got such a supportive audience that comes out to listen and perform. And, it's amazing to get that feedback immediately. So all of you who've been there in the past, you're like with me in my heart right now, and I can hear you adding in your applause. So this piece was written on May 8th, 2020. It's called Vanaprastha, which is the name of a retreat property on the Badawat River that I had the incredible opportunity and gift of being able to spend a lot of time there during this year. It's just a little short piece. A purple palette of lupin rose from the dry spring like spiral stairs, their hearts whirling above their radial green stars. The colors along the garden, orange poppies, red velvet and lemon yellow snapdragons, the soft fuzz on 100 budding frost peaches. My body understands the rhythm and hues of this landscape, of this life. So much of my time at Vanaprastha, out at the river in nature, it calls within me a memory or an awareness that there is the possibility of living in this peaceful, calm, harmonious way. My mind is so different when I'm there. My relationship with my daughter, we don't get into any conflicts. And I know part of it's we're on vacation, we're on retreat, so we don't have the challenges and stresses that occur when you add in work and school and all these other responsibilities. But I think there's some incredible wisdom there to really sink into what happens to our bodies when we are in nature and how it affects our neurological system. And so as, the spring turned to summer and we had so many of us witnessed George Floyd's murder and the race uprisings and then right on the backs of that, the fires throughout the summer and waking up to that orange sky. That meditation on pleasure for me began to brought up all these questions and I have pieces in the book about that, that really get into where is this place of activism and pleasure and how do I stay grounded and what does this mean being conscious and awake and aware and still valuing the experience of the body. So this piece was written on October 9th. It's called The Slow Return. You'll see there's this theme of the slow return coming up on different levels. And this is actually referring to the return of a clear sky. So October 9th, 2020. The sun god has returned. 14 days since I've seen his face unmasked. Fog and smoke hung from his ears, obscuring his yellow glow. At dusk, he did occasionally glimpse over the horizon, fierce and fuchsia. 1 million acres have burned. The fire is cleaning out years of neglect. The sun god warms my skin as the ocean offers her brilliantly fresh air. Our neighbor is chipping wood again. The constant hum of destruction can no longer be ignored. The virus is slowly circulating, 1 new case today. The data drips like a leaky kitchen faucet, slow enough to deny for now. Will we be lulled back to sleep by the heat and clear skies, by the president's swift recovery, by the misguided call for normalcy? Have we learned yet how to slow down, how to take careful, wise steps, how to re-envision healthy living, redefine our choices by what is sustainable ecologically, emotionally? Or shall we just rush back to centering productivity, to centering the comfort of white bodies? Shall we continue to offer our time to sustain this patriarchal hierarchy? My white female body is buzzing with indecision, ungrounded, disconnected from any land, any tradition, any shared values practiced and ritualized in communion. My white body wants to grow roots, to extend my energy into this soil, create compost to sustain this life. My white body wants to hum and sing, dance and grieve. My white body needs to learn how to be present with conflict, with mourning, with impermanence. This white body needs to sit with death, wide-eyed, under the burning autumn sky. Annie and Jim are in the background. They're like, can we clap? You should clap. It would make me feel better. Oh, wait. I'm trying to sit with like discomfort, right? Like, it's not about centering me feeling better, right? Oh, the irony. So October was an intense time for me, and I imagine for many people. My daughter really struggled with the distance learning format of school. She's very social. And I think, 6-7 weeks into that, distance learning Zoom school format, and then with the fires in the sky, she went through a period of pretty intense grief. And this piece is about that. And I shared in that grief with her. All right, so this piece is called, it was written on October 16th, 2020. 3 weeks we have cried, mother and daughter, passing the needle of grief between us, stitching our skin closer together. She tells me she doesn't know why. I can't say I have any answers. I just thread more questions into the eye. I am not separate from she. We move in rhythms like her spirit name, a cadence blooming inside of this sewn together seam. We seem certain this is grief, yet with no ancestral ritual, no broken vessel, or even fragments to carry this weight into the other world. We pass it back and forth, hoping to thread a new lineage. We weep and wail at night, sounds that I was led to believe were dangerous. But these white bodies of ours are not fragile. The heaving moans, full body release, days upon days of this broken system oozes out through our tears, the silence of our grandmothers erupting through our cries, metabolizing generations of separation. Cadence asks me through her tears, Mama, can you teach me how to sew? Yes, I whisper. Right before she left, my mother taught me. So I've been reading recently about regalia makers, or a particular regalia maker in a book called Katem. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a collection of local Native authors, and it's just been blowing my mind. And this lineage of teaching, of mothers teaching their daughters how to sew, not just to make clothes, but to make sacred ritual regalia that dances and has the spirit of the land. So incredibly powerful. I'm so grateful that we have that tradition alive here. So I had 2 pieces left, but I see I'm running out of time. 20 minutes goes faster than one might think. May I ask your grace to finish one more? Is that okay with you too? Okay. That doesn't feel like the right piece then. All right. So this last piece I'm going to share, to skip ahead to the last one. I wrote this in February, and I think it really encapsulates what I hope that I take from the pandemic and really just make it my lifelong practice to really ask this question. The title of it is What Makes Me Want to Live? I read an article where a beautiful young artist mother articulates the journey from numbness and depression to a sense of purpose, to discovering the projects that motivate her to get out of bed, to discovering the medium that makes her want to live for the sake of living, to seek no outcome, nothing beyond the moment itself, to live for the feeling of being alive, to live so that music can pulsate through this body, to unfurl arms like kundalini snakes, shedding skin, awakening Shakti, shucking husks of tightly wrapped calyx-coated shells, to crack open, to emerge slowly, to become the snapdragon's soft flesh, pink and tender, delicately open, to welcome the sun, to inhabit this body, to embrace the wilderness encoded in these cells, to sing this song, to harmonize with backyard bird calls, frog serenades, and yes, the chorus of human cacophony too. The rumbling of truck engines, the hum of the distant highway, the occasional car alarm, the neighbor over the fence yelling, "Hey, do you want to go in deeper?" Yes, Yes, I do. As the bastard dog screeches and sweat begins to build in the warmth of a late winter Wednesday afternoon on the back porch of the Pacific Ocean. Yes, I want you to go deeper, to live fully, to feel the beauty, the busyness, the brutality, the bravery, the totality of being alive in this body, on this earth, in this one precious life. I want to choose the medium that makes me want to live. Well, thank you so much. It was great to get to share some of my new work with you. And we'll be hopefully releasing this book. We'll see, maybe in the fall. I try not to put a timeline on it. But the next poet up, Annie Fricke, has been part of our poetry collective. She does so many incredible things in the community. She has a podcast about her special needs daughter to support special needs parents and families. She has several books, poetry books and novels that she has published, and she is currently working on a new novel. So I'm going to welcome Miss Annie Fricke on up to the sanctuary live stage here. Okay. Yes. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Thank you. It's funny because that's how I start my podcast every time. Hello, everyone. So, I want to read the first one. I'm going to read is from a book that Eureka Poet Laureate David Holper and I put together. He started a Facebook poetry page called Poetry on the Edge right at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a sanctuary for me to be there, and because we were out in the hills, and it was just a way to stay in touch and to share poetry. And there was so much poetry coming out that David and I decided to gather some poetry from the local poets, and we got 40 local poems from 40 local poets in here, all on the theme of quarantine. And so I'm going to start with an abridged version of this poem that I have in here, and I've changed in the book. It's called Rehearsal May Be Over, and I've changed the name to Victory Garden. Okay, I'll start at the beginning. While digging up blackberry vines from the chicken coop, I thought of my great-grandfather, the crooked house with the tall chiming clock, gloriously red tomatoes hanging heavy on vines, and berry bushes ripe with sweetness lining the fence. I clipped and slashed at the thick spiny arms weaving through cherry blossomed branches, scratching red lines into my flesh as I cleared the space with a growing Depression-era anxiety. I would have made a good pioneer woman. Strong hands, broad shoulders, and skin that browns in the sun. I've dug garden beds on the side of rocky slopes, removed stones and piles like my Gaelic ancestors to create rivulets of fertile ground. Bathed children and clothing in buckets of cold river water, eaten meals solely of food grown or fished by my husband and me, made medicine with the plants who grow here by choice. I have played the part of the frontier survivor, in the comfort of modern civilization and roads that lead to town. But now the future feels uncertain. Our survival is not a given. We are fixing the fence of the chicken coop, cleaning out their space so they have a secure place to lay. Free range is hip if you have store-bought eggs to fill in the gaps of your hen's freedom. We are planting seeds to feed a small community. Who knows what friends may have the need. We are gathering medicine into pots upon the porch. There may not always be a tincture for what ails us. We are dusting off our homesteading books, refreshing our memories of the local plants, stuffing cabbage and salt into crocks to learn new sources of nutrition. This no longer feels like a weekend retreat, or what I yearned for in my youth. This no longer feels like a lifestyle. It's beginning to feel like survival. So now that we are over a year out, and where things are, we're starting to be able to see each other again, and there's a vaccine and all that stuff, that poem
seems maybe a little dramatic, but in the moment, in the beginning, it really did feel very scary and felt very unsure of where everything was heading. And so now I would like to read another poem, kind of from this time, from the spring school time. And I feel like when I start this, I want to acknowledge that I think teachers and schools have been doing an amazing job. And it's pretty powerful to see how, people have adjusted and what we are able to adapt to. But in the spring, when it was so new and we were all scrambling, trying to figure out how to teach our kids from home and what was the curriculum and what were we doing, and to have a child with special needs on top of that. So this is for all of you parents out there. This is called crisis learning. Don't worry, they tell us. This is crisis learning. We will catch them up when they return to school. But what of us whose children already struggle to maintain? Trying to climb the backside of the wave while their peers are riding it to the beach? What of us who must translate an already difficult task, a difficult world, a difficult time to a child who struggles to see beyond their own thoughts? What of her peers? Will she remember what she has learned about relationships, of sharing and listening, speaking up and cooperating? Will she remember how to be a friend? Perhaps more importantly, will they? When this crisis dissolves, when the threat retreats and we begin to thrive again, or it settles into our bones with complacency and we've learned a new way to live, outside of the shelter of family, will there be a place for her? Or will we return to see the wave rolling steadily towards the beach, her friends riding along smoothly, and no one looking back to make sure that she has caught it as well? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to totally veer away from the pandemic for the moment. One Mother's Revolution is my second book of poetry that doesn't actually exist anymore because I used Lulu and they don't have it anymore. So anyway, so if you have a copy, maybe someday it'll be worth a lot. So very limited. So this poem is a poem to Mary Magdalene. I was not raised in a Catholic household or anything like that, but I was raised in the Bible Belt by atheist parents, although they called themselves agnostic. But as I got older, I realized what they really meant. But still, my best friend growing up was Catholic, actually, so I got a good glimpse of, just kind of some of the stories that were put on her, and being raised in this culture, we know the stories. So this is, I did a wonderful kind of practice class with a friend who is very knowledgeable, and I learned a bit more of the more hidden story of Mary Magdalene. So this is a poem to Mary of Magdala. Did you know the way this would unfold? Know before knowing how your story would be disguised? Did you step into the circle, hands splayed in supplication, ready to receive gifts of wisdom in exchange for your dignity and your truth? Or did they blindside you with blasphemy and lies? Was your spirit assaulted in the twisting and reshaping of your story? The sharp-edged words of Gregory's sermon piercing your spiritual flesh, nailing you to a cross no one would witness? Do you weep, longing for a time and place lost to the translations of today, when your feet walked dusty paths alongside compassion and grace, when you were Mary of Magdala, a woman of her own right, without context to man? How did this all end? Had you called him when he came to you? marched willingly into the depths of the underworld to retrieve his spirit and bring him again to the light, an eternal remembrance of his teaching, an alchemy of sacred knowledge and love. Did you mean to honor him for the rest of history, or revive his soul for the sake of your own? Was it for love of us or love of him? Or did he come to you of his own desire, lay his legacy at your feet, ask of you the responsibility of remembrance? Did you at first put up your hands in rejection, back away in fear, and suggest the burden of truth was too great for you to carry? Yet you braved the world, carried the resuscitation of his spirit with your words, faced mockery and disbelief and lies, a defamation of historical carnage, shamed before a congregation of millennia, girls shriveling under the judgment of 1,000 moons, lining church walls and confessional prisons, desperately seeking through the pages and the lore for anyone who may look like them. Their sisters and aunties, their mothers and grandmothers, enslaved by existential sufferings, misconstrued sexuality, and stultified awakenings. Do you call to them from across the ether? Whisper your humanity into their ears. Sing for them the melody of your own gospel. Come to them in dreams and light the path of transformation, of subjugation into strength, grief into wisdom, fear into action. Do you build for them a step upon which to stand? Bury your wisdom into their bones. Infuse the truth of your own story into their cells, so when they are faced with the option of either virgin or whore, they know, these awakening women know, that they can be both and everything in between. Thank you. Okay, so this next one, I apologize, I do have to read off of my phone. Thank goodness for these little gadgets. So this one is on Medium. If anybody is on Medium, you can check me out at Anne Fricke, A-N-N-E. Actually, it's Annie, but anyway, that's how I spell it. I'm on Medium. And I have some poems up there. This one is called Evacuation Lessons from the Redwoods. So we did get evacuated a few times this summer down in southern Humboldt. And it's an intense experience to, you know, drive away from your house with your dogs and your cats and your kids. And that's it. The chickens had to fend for themselves, unfortunately. But and then to look back at your home and just wonder if you'll ever see it again. And yes, it is just a home, it is a building, but it's very intense. So anyway, here I stand, not unaccompanied, in desperation of smoke-infused lungs, orange skies, and abandoned livestock. My youngest could not sleep with her grief for the chickens left behind. There is no one left to fight this fire. They are all battling flames somewhere. We are all battling flames somewhere. The world is on fire. We are exhausted from our fights, worn down with the persistent tendrils of inferno. Everywhere we turn, now there are new sparks, alighting the tinder around us, and those who set the match need only sit and watch and wait. So I think of the redwood, her ability to hold the fire. Let it smolder beneath her skin to protect the forest around her, and the two standing sentinel over our home. Their silhouette against the darkening skies, I looked upon our old yellow house for perhaps the last time. As the fires rage around us, as resources and fighters travel elsewhere to douse flames of impending doom, as the searing heat closes in and we are overcome with the urge to run away or drop to our knees in defeat and let it all burn, let us remember the redwood. Let us stand tall and proud, fire resistant. Know that even if the flames begin to hollow out our insides, we can survive. Be a home for life once the fire has passed, amidst charred remains and a blanket of ash. we can still drop seeds onto the fertile forest floor. All right, got one more, an oldie but a goodie. And this, so cheesy, sorry. So this one I wrote, I went to the San Francisco Writers Conference a few years ago, and because I was going to learn how to pitch my novel, is what ended up being, and it was really, it was a great experience in a lot of ways, but I realized that it was the game of the business of, you know, finding an agent and all that stuff was really, did make me happy. And the second day, or the evening of the first day, I went and to the poetry class, and it was just such a huge difference. And so it was really lovely to be amongst my people in a very crowded place of everybody trying to sell a memoir. So this is called I Found the Poets. I found the poets, scattered amongst the sparkling grass of acid-induced reflections. I found the poets bellowing from misty rooftops over San Francisco alleyways. I found the poets riding ragged and sweaty on greyhounds across America, bloodshot eyes dripping down the window, greedily pressed to the glass and ravishments of the passing scene. I found the poets residing between dusty book jackets smelling of mildew, antiquated pages riffling to the shadows of my perceptions. I found the poets' faces raised to the rain of a late-night Indiana thunderstorm, splashing in puddles and reveling in the small taste of freedom. I found the poets speaking revolution from converted school buses, waking with drumbeats of Shoshone elders to the glorious hues of a crying desert. I found the poets tucking children quietly into bed at night, backing slowly away to find the solace of their pens, writing into the world a place where they may live again. I found the poets, wine-drenched bodies spewing forth wisdom from street corners in Memphis. I found the poets wandering along deserted highways in a southern rain. I found the poets whispering the melody of their soul into my forgotten ears beneath the sheets of seduction. I found the poets' powdered noses speaking gospel on the linoleum floor of a farmhouse kitchen. I found the poets stashed away in diners in the dark hours of insecurity, scribbling feverishly onto napkins with tobacco-stained fingers. I found the poets coiled in anxiety on unwashed blankets, tremors of childhood trauma splintering along their skin. I found the poets hidden behind the ranks of straight-backed professionals whose mouths oozed references to word count, structure, and genre, the commodity of writing. I found the poets in the hospital rooms of vacant minds and dying children. I found the poets echoing up from damp, mossy graves now crumbling back into the earth. I found the poets in my own home, my daughter's words, my husband's vows. I found the poets in a cozy tavern suggestive of a rocking boat, and a place shrouded in fog and the comforting seduction of a song. I found the poets. And that, my friends, has made all the difference. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now my dear friend Jeremiah is going to come up, a phenomenal poet and performer. So put your hands together at home. And thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Jeremiah, and my pen name is J.W. Seaborn. That's what I prefer to go by when I'm doing my creative work. And under that name, J.W. Seaborn, you can find a lot of my work on YouTube or on Spotify if you like what you hear. I want to take a quick moment to give a shout out to J Street Regulars Radio Hour and James for hosting us. This is a really lovely space, and it's just an honor to be here and share some of our work. The first poem I'll be reading is called Life is a River. It started with the rain, and it was loud then. Heavy clouds spill over the horizon. Genetics, this low-pressure storm that soaked the land, and how the ground swelled before you were born, it split open and gave way to a river. Now that is you and I and everyone that the turning of time has delivered here, pulled along over a channel we call history. A multicultural landscape shapes our speed. Oh, the humanity. Walls as tall as Yosemite define and direct us. Angular edifices frame our perspectives. We were already tangled as children in the eddies and reeds. We learned how to swim. Life is a river. And we were all shown how cold can be. With the snow melt, things started to flow faster. Now, usually you are free to choose your favorite way how to swim, powerful strokes or playful paddles. Sometimes you skip stones, sometimes you skin your knees, sometimes there's laughter, sometimes there's drought and shortage. But ultimately, you find that the current is the master. In the river valley of time, the shore is too steep to climb, and the constant pressure flow of little moments we live in show no sign of stopping, so there are really only two options, two things we can reach out for. First, there are the rocks, scattered along the way. Holding on to them may answer some scary questions, but the answers are unrealistic and selfish. They bear beliefs to convince you are more clay than flesh, more fire than breath, that this crazy ride is not so special, but it is. It is. And besides, you can't hold on to these fixtures forever. I choose the second option, to be brave and swim freely with the other inspired people, adversaries and lovers, sisters and brothers, sons and daughters. Life is a river that the best you can do is get damn good at going with the flow and treading water. Even when it's roiling and rough, that at the right opportunity, you can help bring someone else up. Even when your own head goes under, hold on to those human connections. We are still swimming. We are torrential. We are all bathed in the destiny of death. A slow baptism in the clumsy hands of circumstance. Now, you will learn how to hold your breath, or at least respect its absence, made dirty and washed clean by the rise and the fall of our senses. But as long as there is a beat in your chest, you keep yourself from release to the whole and from nothingness. But the current is relentless. And I'll buoy you up for as long as I can. I promise I will. We don't get to know when the river opens into the mouth of memories. We, the vapor rising to form the clouds, whispers of words only to be mispronounced a few generations from now. But regardless of your future notions, the river ran out in the ocean, and it'll be quiet then. Thank you.
You're a bit taller.
Just a bit. This next poem is a poem with a message. It's called End Stage. It's always too soon until it's too late. It's always too. I wish we didn't wait to have those hard conversations. I wish that things were different. In hindsight, months passed in an instant. When advance directives were mentioned in an April appointment, she grew quiet. She couldn't hide the way that making those kinds of decisions felt like surrender. I was quiet too. I had not yet surrendered to the scary truth. I could not bear the weight of losing her, her pain, her body's failure. It was not hers alone, or was it? Well, these decisions are best made with the family together after all, so why are we all acting so defensive? We were fighting the inevitable. We were trudging through the mud with the odds resting heavy on her shoulders, and now that I'm older, I see how poorly we prepared for the end stage. In the end stage, you're still given options for how you might buy more time. But what is time to the suffering? Who would you hold on for? What would you? If I learned anything, it's that more time doesn't necessarily translate to a better death. We so easily look to medicine for hope, but death will come. And in the end, there is just so much professionals can do. And we realize we spend so little time considering, what if it were you? Our knowledge is incomplete. To find some quality of life with your family is the most special kind of treat, when your days are numbered. So what the hell shall I endure when my time, more time, isn't worth it anymore? It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. We all lose all of it in time. The end stage can still be meaningful with a willingness to try, to just talk it through. If we could just be brave enough to have the hardest conversations we ever knew. Well, it's always too soon until it's too late. Please, please, please. Fill out your 5 wishes forms or talk to your doctor about advance directives. Thank you. Okay. On a lighter note, I think a lot about death and how it relates to philosophy. I think it's important in those dark moments of reflection and in our grief to try to take some perspective, some grander perspective in our small place in the universe. And this poem is about precisely that. It's true what you've heard. We are leftover star stuff. Thermonuclear fusion made this possible. Entropy will break it down. Supernova explosions spread it out. The death of 1 billion suns. It's geniusly absurd. Emergence did churn and turned into all of us. Entropy in emergence. Over and over, we emerged from the wreckage with only so much fuss. We are the universe experiencing itself. Collections of molecules, aware, entangled, not apart, and the expanse of our interconnections are still being charted. Why assume our minds are separate from the rest of it? What if consciousness wasn't something that we alone created, not a lonely mechanical spark in a void, but not self-contained, but entangled? Everything else is bound in chemical unity and common origin of celestial forge and flame. So why would consciousness be anything less than likewise entangled? What if our brains are less combustion engine generator and more radio receiver? Picking up a wavelength, some singular cosmic utterance, and our minds dance to that song through all the static. This dance of thought has 4 basic steps: perception, imagination, integration, and action. Every single one, every single time, caused by moving charges and ion gradients, action potentials in our nervous system. Look at the rhythms, man. Look at the rhythms we have learned to work with. If you forget for just a moment, all the social policies and moral prescriptions of philosophies and world religions, most all say this one thing in common: we are of infinitely deep connection and oneness. Whatever else gets added is just personal flourish, entangled in this cosmic dance of this consciousness. Thank you. So I have a deep love for the scientific method and the body of knowledge that science has produced. I have spent most of the last decade of my life in institutions of higher learning, and I just love the university setting. And I have done my very best to merge the spoken word format with a little bit of science lecture flair. So this last piece that you heard and this next piece are demonstrations of that. This is called The Nature of Light. And I wrote it after a really fantastic physics class. 80% of all the sensory receptors in our whole bodies are just in our eyes. We're visual creatures, you see. And yet we only get a little sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. So much is beyond our perception, so our technology tells us. And we still depend on wavelengths 380 to 740 nanometers long. We are long lost between radio and gamma, scratching out our drama. Light is a fascinating thing when you stop to learn about it. No other phenomenon that we know of can be explained as both a particle and a wave simultaneously. Moreover, all other waves must travel through a medium, a body, not light, however. Light, brilliant light, is both the tide and the vessel. It carries itself through the vast emptiness of space by an oscillation of electric and magnetic energy, bouncing back and forth perpendicular to the direction of the ray, only to meet our eyes millions of kilometers away and illuminate our senses in a twist-turn pattern of radiating intensity. It's beautiful, damn it, it's beautiful. All life that we have ever known, or at least most of it, has been somehow stimulated by this wondrous thing called light. It reflects and refracts, plays with our world, unintentionally eliciting animation. Springtime blooms, hydrologic cycles, they shape our sense of place and home. Home. But light from the sun would cook us if it were not for the molten metal mantle, the rock that churns down to the core, that causes channels where the charged particles dance at the magnetic poles of Earth's spinning axis, a theater of stellar proportions, delayed on arrival. To Aurora crown our mother queen. And don't think less of our ancestors for misunderstanding. Now if the lights, now if the lights are off, does the mirror still reflect? And how could you see to the other side of this pale blue speck? The light, the mirror, looks deep into me when I stop to learn more. There is no person on the other side, save for the one that is manifest by our boastful brains. And whenever I look into my own eyes, the light does not lie to me, but it asks that I interpret my own illusions. The light asks I interpret my own illusions. And I say yes. Thank you. How much time do I have left? 5 minutes? Okay. I'll just share one last piece with you all. This is an extended metaphor for taking charge of your behavior, the way you react to things, and how you care for yourself on your downtime. It's called Take Shelter. My best buddy once told me a story about his old dog and what happened when they moved. You see, the dog's eyes weren't so good anymore, and it had a mental map established from the last place, so it never really adapted to the new layout. It kept on walking into walls. It was the saddest thing. But then my buddy, he told me how he'd seen people fall into the same kinds of traps. They think they know the map, but they have it backwards. The map isn't static. Because of expectations, they keep getting rattled by the real deal. Now imagine that you're building a house, or more so a home. You've come up with a plan, a layout for where everything will go. You go to break ground. Your blueprints are set, but they didn't tell you. It's more of a remodel situation. The best laid plans of mice and men, and we're back to the drawing board again, so let's get into it. Will you knock out some walls, open up the space a bit, tear out the old wallpaper strip by strip? The thing is, this fixer-upper isn't a physical structure, but a mental one, a shelter of your central nervous system, a home in your very heart. You and I, we still have a lot of remodeling to do. And the wonderful part about this work is, if you're ready, how much we get to choose, which space we give room to. With that new tiled foyer, you can kick the shoes off your feet. Some self-care can bring down the anxiety. You can cozy up in your den, put some shag carpet in, get comfortable in there. Those good feelings, a source of confidence for later. But does jealousy crowd the bedroom? Take up more room than you'd like to admit? Do regrets clutter the basement? See, there is always work to be done in the home of my heart. But it is good work. It is a lifelong undertaking. It is maintenance. Every day, we brush our teeth, bathe our bodies. Why not make a habit of emotional hygiene and embrace the fact we are forever being repurposed? Find a way to get excited about the remodel. Take shelter in your mind. Make it livable. A home in your very heart. Be kind to yourself and allow the space to change as it serves you and your people best. And try to avoid being like that blind old dog for as long as you can. Thank you. All right, I just want to close by saying thanks again to the Sanctuary and for the J Street Regulars Radio Hour. It's been an amazing privilege. Check us out.